Well, today's meeting was more of a meet and greet. As I promised in my first meeting last weekend with SASCO, I indicated that I was going to go into a listening campaign and a learning campaign, of course, with all the federations, understanding how they are structured and what are their programs, including the challenges and how do we deal with those issues together. But of course, once you have listened, you have to go back and deal with those issues. And we also talked about transformation. In our meeting with Sarah today, we also talked about the World Cup bid for 2023 and my own issues. I'm very passionate with the issues of development. I was interested as to what is their development program in terms of going into the schools, because that's where our youth is, where it's organized in the schools. And those are the issues which we talked about.
Did some of the answers you received impress you, put you at ease from SA Rugby to those questions?
Well, there's a program which has been put to me. I've seen it for the first time. And it was not just in detail. They've given me documents. I still have to study those documents. But at least there is something going on in terms of youth development and sport. But I feel that it's not enough, not only with rugby. It's not enough with all the codes, precisely for a simple reason. You look at those who are in the national teams today, mainly drawn from Model C schools or schools where there is sport. The issue is what we used to call Sports Wednesdays. It's no more there in many of the black schools. There's some talent which has not been unearthed there. But that's not the responsibility of rugby. It's the responsibility of the federations plus also the departments, both the Department of Sport and Recreation together with the Department of Education. The issue is going to be how do we pull things together, pull resources together, and be able to identify that talent which is lying there in the rural areas, there in the townships, in the suburbs. And I think that's the big challenge. But also, you would remember the role of sport when you're talking about majority of our youth unemployed. How do we remove them from crime? If we're to have those sports clubs, those teams at the village level, at every community level, it would be very helpful to pull those kids away from crime over the weekends to be engaged in sport. So we were talking about that. It's going to be a tall order, but we will have to deal with those challenges.
In terms of the World Cup, but we know that former Minister Madula said it hinges a lot on that EPG report and about the whole transformation targets. How do you feel? Do you look at it differently, or does the Sports Ministry support the SARU's bid for the World Cup at this point in time?
The EPG report is there. It's left for us to study it and release it. And very soon, will be releasing and making pronouncements about that report, because the issue of us supporting as government hinges on or is dependent on one of those issues. I don't want to preempt that report, but very soon I'll be calling you guys to talk about it, and soon is very soon.
In terms of the you said development, how important would a Rugby World Cup, hosting a Rugby World Cup, be to driving that development?
If I were to draw my experiences from the Soccer World Cup, you would remember that in terms of nation building, when both black and white South Africans were in the stands supporting Bafana Bafana, but also enjoying international football. The legacy of that, if you look into the local clubs today, you have both black and a lot of white South Africans now who are following soccer, who are in the stands watching those local teams. It's very, very important. Today you have the stadium, which is a legacy. Of course, there have been some scandals about the inflated prices by the construction companies. That's a matter we've been dealing with as Minister of Public Works. Together with the other ministers, have been part of the team dealing with those issues. But you have the infrastructure there for you. And I guess even when you look at the prospects of your Rugby World Cup, you will be having the infrastructure. You don't need to start from scratch. So that what you would call the cost will be seriously reduced because you already have the infrastructure and all over the country and so on. But it depends on how government is going to look at it economically, financially, and so on. But I'm saying one of the major expenses, which has always been the issue of the infrastructure, is already there in South Africa. And I believe that it can leave a very huge legacy and it will make a big impact, like soccer did.
Just with regards to your role, what are the pertinent issues that you want to tackle as the Minister of Sport? What's important to you in your role?
2 or 3 pertinent issues for me. Good governance in all the codes. Good governance is very central in each and every code. This thing goes very far. We don't have a lot of resources, a lot of funding from government, even codes themselves. We rely also on the private sector. And how, if there are sponsors, ensure that there's proper management of those funds. There's accountability for those funds from everybody. Accountability must not just be from government, it must also from the codes themselves, it must also be at the club level. So I'm focusing on that issue that we account. Second, and I think I've already said it, the issue of school sport in all the codes, the issue of youth development. Because if you want to have national competing teams who are going to be competitive at an international level, you need to have a large pool where you draw the young players. And you can only do that if you've invested in school sport. That's why it's so central to me. That's where the clubs must be able to identify certain talent. Some talent is hidden somewhere in the rural areas. It's hidden somewhere in some village. It's hidden somewhere in the township because people have never had that exposure. And you can only do that. You can only do that if you mobilize the teachers. Remember that what I call Sports Wednesday, when it was there was a lot of enthusiasm. Remember that some of the kids are not very strong on the academic side, but very strong physically on the sports side. That's their joy, that's their love. And I think we need to reignite that.
Minister, coming back to rugby, soccer is the most popular sport in the country, but rugby is the most successful. If you look at the World Cups that we've won, you must be quite excited about what rugby can do for South Africa again in terms of uniting the country, but also giving them something to smile about with perhaps a World Cup victory coming up soon. You must just be excited walking around here, seeing the trophies and the success that rugby has had in the country.
Indeed, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. I wouldn't say soccer might be the biggest, but in South Africa, rugby is it's very important. If you go to the Eastern Cape, for instance, even in the black townships, you talk rugby, you are talking this sport for them. So rugby remains a national sport here in South Africa, and all we're left with is to promote it in the provinces where it has not been properly promoted, and go to the ground. I mean, look at cricket. Cricket at some stage was not a known sport, and what happened? That initiative, even if it was under apartheid by Dr. Ali Bacha, what did it do? Today you talk cricket, if you talk to the young black kids today, it's one of the most important sport for them. If you look at the passion they are having in following the national cricket teams and so on. So I think rugby is very important, but we know that we have a team which has been performing. It's just that last year we had a slump, and we believe that we're going to go back where we belong as South African rugby.
And were you briefed on the axing or the elimination of 2 Super Rugby franchises, and does government have a position on that?
Definitely I was briefed about it. I had questions, initial questions of course, as to what does it mean? What does it mean in terms of what those clubs who are going to be affected? Will it be the rural ones or what? But I think there are still discussions. There are different options which they are looking at. It's like it's not a South African thing. It has been decided at the highest level where this thing is played. But we will look into it, and what it must not do is to discourage those who are coming from the provinces that might be affected. I know that there's no final decision at the level of SARU yet.